Welcome, everybody. My name is Drew from the Southern Wisconsin Bird Alliance Bald Eagle Nest Watch and the Nesting Eagle podcast. Here with my co-host Beth. How you doing, Beth?
I'm doing great.
All right, great. This is episode number 11. Hopefully, you've been following along, but we're going to do something a little bit different. We'll be a little bit around all over the place, but first, we're going to start off with the Trempealeau nest updates. What's going on at this Wisconsin nest, Beth?
Well, I think actually it's pretty status quo, as are many of the nests. Everything is calmed down, weather has calmed down, and nests are doing well. This eaglet has gotten substantially larger. It's getting well fed. It always has a full crop. Its mother is standing there above it. She is still bringing fish into the nest. She will call out to the male who is at a second nest. So this is a cooperative nesting um, trio. And there are eaglets, or an eaglet at least, in another nest across the Mississippi River from this one. But she does call the male in. The male will come over and it'll take the leftover fish and it'll fly it across the river to his second nest with his
Yeah.
second partner. And a lot of people are offended by this, and this is a case in point where I think we anthropomorphize and we put our own human relationships overlay it onto these eagles, and this is just not fair because eaglets don't have human emotions and they don't behave the same way. She is agreeing to this relationship with these two other eagles, and honestly, I think she and her great fishing skills are responsible for keeping that other nest
Yeah.
of eaglet or eaglets alive. And so this isn't a bad thing. She is cooperating in it. Her eaglet is well fed. The sad part of it was early on, she had three eaglets, and two of them died because she had to go out fishing for food and the weather was bad. And it ended up claiming the lives of the two subsequent eagle number two and three of that nest. So the first eaglet still survives, and again, I just think these three have agreed to some sort of a shared nesting situation, um, and I think she is keeping the other nest alive and well. So I find it fascinating, and
Yeah, for
looking
sure.
forward to hearing what experts have to say about it beyond, what you and I know as citizen scientists.
Yeah, I mean it's first off, this is amazing mom for
Yeah.
doing this. It's been our experience, just the data. A lot of times when we have an issue, if something happens to one of the pair, if it gets injured in a fight with another eagle or gets, has to go to rehab for an injury or disease or whatever happens, it's been our experience most of the time that the nest fails pretty quickly. And it's amazing that she's been able to keep it up basically on her own, kind of as a single parent. So hats off to her. I mean, that's a tremendous thing. And as you mentioned, she's actually probably supporting both the nests. I don't know how much data they have at RRP about or how much of a eye they're keeping on the other nest of who's bringing in. Who's catching fish. Is the other female from that other nest
They
proficient in
can't really
fishing? But
see that
yeah,
yet. And I know they were going to go on the ground to look for it.
yeah,
What the only thing they're able to do really is if the camera operator is right there, he will follow the
yeah.
male across the river to that nest where it is bringing the fish. But I don't know if he has limited fishing skills compared to her.
Yeah.
You know, it's curiosity.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So that I mean it's just very interesting. We'll definitely keep an eye on this one to see really what's going on. It's fascinating. And that this again brings back we've made this point many times, but what we do with our citizen science program and then other programs across the country as well as the nest cams. we're just getting a better view of what's going on in with nesting eagles. It's fascinating stuff, and we keep seeing this, and we'll go over a couple of them that we have from our local program as far as interesting stuff that's been going on. That's
This is an all Wisconsin episode.
yes, yes. So, but it's very interesting. There's a lot of interesting stuff, and that's I've always said that. I've been doing this monitoring nests for I don't know. It's probably been about 15 years, and it never gets old. It never gets old because there's so much new information, and I'm learning every season these little tidbits and little things that are happening that are being observed that just have never happened and a lot of times aren't documented. So it's really
Right.
cool experience to do that. And
There's going to
then,
be some
just
thesis papers on this, I'm sure, this fall.
yeah, and then like with the nest cams too, providing information as well and seeing some of these just weird things going on and occurrences. It's very interesting. So hopefully you guys are enjoying listening to us kind of using our expertise to analyze what's going on. So,
And
I
there
wanna-
is often a call for intervention, like when she lost her
yeah,
her subsequent two chicks, that this chick should have been rescued and taken from the nest. And we had mentioned this at the end of episode 10. But you have to let eagles be eagles, and they have to learn, and they really learn by, in some ways, by trial and error. And
yeah.
they need to be allowed to be eagles and do the things that eagles do, even though it hurts us to see it, or knowing that two eaglets potentially didn't need to die. It it is the way of their world, and we are just invited to watch it.
Yeah, and it should be interesting to see as the season progresses too, and actually into the off season. Do these guys link up and become a trio nest, which is pretty rare, or does Mrs. T bring on another male for next season? So that should be interesting to see what happens. I'm fascinated to see what the dynamic goes towards because we have those trio nests. It pretty very rare, but what's going on there? That's one that's really intrigued me is what's going on. So maybe if this becomes a trio nest, it'll kind of give us some insight on the dynamics and what occurred to cause that. So it should be interesting to see even in the off season what happens and with this net. So all right, let's move on. We're going to talk a little bit about update our program, the Bald Eagle Nest Watch, the Southern Wisconsin Bird Alliance Bald Eagle Nest Watch. We're kind of into it in early May. The first good news, Beth, and I've been reviewing my area, and I know you've reviewed yours recently too. It seems like this was the time in 2022 when we were starting to see nests fail because of influenza and HPAI, highly pathogenic influenza. But it's not showing those signs. So far, so good. This is kind of migrations ramping up, and this is where we were seeing a lot of signs of nests failing. So far, so good. We can't guarantee that it might not crop up, but the signs are good so far. So it's not looking like 2022. So that's definitely a good thing.
I 2023 was predicted to be really bad,
Yeah.
and we skated through it. And the whole time I just kept waiting for the bottom to fall out
Yeah.
again, like it had in 2022. And then 2024, it seemed like, oh, avian flu, not a really big deal. I know it was in the upper Midwest, but it didn't really make it to us. And then this year just looked like it was going to be devastating. There were just so many dead mergansers along the coast of Lake Michigan. A variety of other birds. We think we lost a couple of eagles to avian flu that were along the bluffs of Lake Michigan. And Milwaukee closed down its aviary, and it's been closed since the first week of February, and now it has reopened. So if they've reopened, they must not be seeing any signs of influenza around. So that is a great sign.
Yeah. Yeah. And hopefully it'll stay this way because 22 was rough. I don't know how we had any volunteers after that year. That was rough, but they stuck with us, and I'm glad they did because we have really good volunteers throughout the program. And
It was hard. I
yeah, it was
was
hard. It was
ready to
rough.
walk. That
Yeah,
was, yeah.
I was getting pretty much a text or a phone call or an email pretty much every day for a large part of the month of May. So it wasn't great.
I'm pretty sure 50% of those were for me.
Yeah, yeah, there was a lot, but it was an unfortunate incident. So it's good
I
to see
remember
that.
calling the DNR and telling them the nest that we were so hopeful for that was in Milwaukee City
Yeah,
that had two young in the nest. And I called the DNR and I said, it's gone. And I was trying to be composed. And the first thing they said to me was, you can't quit.
yeah,
And, yeah, it was
yeah,
really rough.
yeah. It was tough. So I wouldn't have faulted anybody that wanted to quit, but the vast majority of our volunteers stuck through it, and
Yeah.
it was good. We collected a lot of important data on that, and hopefully in the future we continue to not see it impacting the nest as much as it did that year. But
Well,
so far
there
so
has
good.
been a study out that says that bald eagles seem to be able to resist it,
Yeah,
the avian flu. So once they've been exposed to it, then they do build a resistance to it. So hats off to those people who are studying it because we need a lot more information on
yeah, yeah.
HPAI.
It's
It is
and I
confusing
think we don't
virus.
even understand the impact of what happened that year. As we've kind of talked off camera, is that there's a lot of nests that the personalities of course, we not a lot of the birds are tagged now. So we're speculating, but when you're out at a nest as much as we are, or our volunteers are out, they have very distinct personalities, and those personalities were definitely changing. So I think there was quite a turnover of nesting pairs, either one or maybe two, depending on the situation. But I think we were losing, there was probably a bigger impact than we realized. That we'll never know for sure, but it just seems like a lot of the nest, the dynamics and characteristics and personalities changed a little bit. So,
I think so
but
too, and I think they've still been changing. Maybe not as much as they were, but there are definitely signs of nests having changed partners even this season.
yeah, for sure. And then just a very interesting nest. And let me pull up the picture and blow it up a little bit. Let's see how that is. Okay. So this is one of your nests in your area, Beth. What
Yeah.
is going on? Because this makes me nervous. I'm just like, what is
I
going
don't
on?
know if we crossbred a bald eagle with an osprey. I'm
Yeah.
not sure what's going on. This is a nest. I'm just going to call it Wendy's nest. That is north of Milwaukee, and she kept saying she was seeing this eagle up on this electrical platform, and I, kept saying, "Are you sure it's not an osprey?" And she knows her stuff, so she stopped and she got me proof of what was going on there. And I just have to say, uh, it's fascinating, but it also makes my heart skip a beat because I'm
Yeah.
so fearful of fledging if those birds land on the power line and they're too close to where there's a connection, a jump to another line that this could spell danger, or death to these eaglets. But I have never seen bald eagles like this. I know in Florida there's some on scaffolding but this just seems sort of precarious.
Yeah,
Um,
it happens. As you said, it happens more in Florida. We've had it a few times in Wisconsin. It's definitely not as common. I think it's simply because the territories aren't as tight as our friends down in Florida, as well as we have more trees. It's
yeah.
Wisconsin definitely has more trees
But
suitable.
from what a bald eagle looks for as far as building a nest, this has got the vantage point in all directions. I mean, they did pick the tallest structure in the area.
Yeah. I guess you've been out to this area. It looks like there's a decent amount of what are those white pines or some sort of
Yeah, yeah,
pines.
there's a lot of conifers.
There was no. I'm just surprised they wouldn't grab one of those white pines that was big enough to nest in. So, but apparently, I don't know if those are too small. They look fairly small, so I don't know if they're
They,
big enough.
I don't think they've got the girth that
Yeah,
to support a eagle
yeah,
nest. But then, there's a limited size range to what that nest can be, seeing
yeah,
as it's on an open platform and it has no, there's not a crotch of a tree to support the nest getting any larger. It
yeah,
is what it is. But those are definitely two eaglets in that nest.
yeah,
Mom has a perfect perch there,
yeah.
just a little ways down, and um, our a lot of birds use power lines. I mean, certainly red-tailed hawks are always on power lines or power line poles and hunting along roadways. It's just not often that you see an eagle doing this. And then, just recently in my own neighborhood, I've seen eagles up on huge power poles, and it's like, oh, yikes. And I just hope those connections are better than what they used to be because in the town, near the town where this nest is at, several owls, great horned owls, were getting electrocuted because the young were fledging to the power line, and it was killing. It killed all three great horned owl chicks one year, and it was pretty devastating. So
Yeah,
neither spirit line.
we'll see how this goes, and Beth will provide some updates as we get them. But fingers crossed. Hopefully, we don't get any storms or anything because that could be trouble too. It's just it's yeah, that's going to be a nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
What
Well, in the heat of summer, they're really going to want to fledge because they have
yeah,
no
yeah.
sun protection at all.
Yeah, and I know we've talked about this quite a bit with the nature of how eagle nests are. They're going to want to get out of the nest because of, getting baked in that summer sun is not good for them. So, hopefully everything goes well. But I thought that was a really interesting nest that you brought, and you discovered another nest. I'm gonna caution our audience right now. This is going to get into maybe a sticky subject. But tell us a little bit about before we put up the picture, what you discovered this
Oh.
recently.
Well, in a town near where I live, there's a pair of eagles that has eluded us for quite a long time, and um, my husband and I went out to run an errand, and we got sidetracked by these two eagles flying by, and we um, eventually started to talk to people, and were zeroing in on the nest. And as we were zeroing in on the nest, I realized its proximity to an incident that happened in 2020. And I have faulted another eagle nest for the behavior that happened, but um, I cannot find it on Facebook any longer. But there was a woman who happened to come across a bald eagle as it descended on a cat that was roaming a field, and there were probably 15 photos, and the cat was very much alive at the beginning of it, and then the eagle did fly off with the cat. It didn't fly high or far. It went up to a fence post, and I did not save some of the more
Graphic.
graphic photos
Yeah.
because I don't have anything against cats. I don't like feral cats because of what they do to the bird population. But there are many a cat that I do like and appreciate. But it made me realize too that feral cats, have always been sort of apex predators in the fields and the barns and whatever wherever they live. They're not used to really being challenged. And now that the bald eagle population has come back, um, cats are no longer really apex. So a bald eagle can certainly take them out. So when we started to close in on this nest, and this was just this week, we pulled up into a neighborhood, and we asked this woman if she had seen any bald eagles nearby, and she said, "Oh, I know they live up there." And she goes, but they eat cats. And my husband and I nearly fell over because I realized how close it was to where I know this photo was
Yeah.
taken, and it is clearly the cat nest. So she said that she has seen it take several cats, and so she actually provides safe harbor for cats in her neighborhood. Um, so there you have it. Don't let your cat outside if you are seeing eagles around because they're not they're not safe in the land of eagles.
Yeah, and I think this brings up a lot of interesting topics because I think this is probably still very rare. I think a lot of times when I know there was actually a nest cam, I think around Pittsburgh that was kind of known for having a lot of callers, bringing in cats. And I think a lot of people speculated, including me, that a lot of I think probably the vast majority is roadkill. Cats getting killed on the road and then being brought in to the nest as food that way. But this is really interesting because there is that folklore you hear about eagles carrying off little babies and stuff like that, and then there's pets is definitely in that folklore too. But I don't know how I feel about this because this is one of those things that is very interesting, but it brings up your point, Beth, that if you do have small dogs or cats, I wouldn't keep them around eagles. I think these are feral cats that they're preying on, right? Barn cats. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Well, if you have a house cat, yeah, it
Yeah.
shouldn't be outside, but
Yeah, but
I mean, at the very least, you've got coyotes or, other things that are around that can make, a meal out of that cat should the cat find itself in a position where it's unlucky. I think part of it is cats just don't realize that eagles are a threat.
yeah.
So, as I jokingly said to you earlier, the memo has not gone out to cats
Yeah.
that eagles are back and, you know,
Yeah.
they're coming for you if you're an easy an easy kill. So if the cat is just sitting there, which it appeared from the photo that we just looked at, that cat was not thinking at all that it was going to be a meal. It definitely caught the cat off guard. So um, the cats might not be thinking that way, but some eagles are.
Yeah.
And once you know a cat is an easy catch and you're able to feed your nestlings with a cat, then you're going to go for another cat. So eagles do have a limit to how much they can carry. So I don't think it was able to carry that cat
Oh,
away, or it certainly couldn't lift it up to a nest. It went to about a 4 foot height um, where it was with the cat. Um, so it could take a portion of it and then it could come
yeah.
back for another portion of it. But if an eagle weighs 10 pounds, the the story is they can't carry more than half their weight, so nothing can be over 5 pounds.
Yeah.
And probably to carry it away and get any height, it's going to have to be around 3 pounds or so.
Yeah, and we've seen that. I've seen that quite a bit. You see it out in the nest, but you usually see it more with a fish. Sometimes they they grab a fish that's a little bit bigger than they expected, and usually they're taking a swim because the fish is just too big for them to pull out and carry it somewhere. And I've seen it quite a few times, especially at one of my nests that was right on the Wisconsin River. They would catch these good size. I'm not sure what kind of fish it was, but it was a good sized fish, and most of the time they'd catch it and then they'd have to drag it, swim and drag it to the shore and usually eat some of it, at least a little bit to lower the weight. And then eventually bring it to the nest because it was just too heavy to carry, to get it up to this 80, 90-foot tree.
Right.
So yeah, that's definitely a thing, and it is interesting. There was that occurrence. I think it was actually in Milwaukee. I'm not sure what year it was, but there was one there was footage of an eagle attacking like a deer. But do you remember that, Beth? I think we might have talked about that. But there was an incident where the footage and something to just keep in mind is that they can't carry a deer.
Right.
Goldens are more known to do that. They actually out in the mountains they'll take care of mountain goats and other things. But usually what they use is they use that gravity to
Yeah.
do their business because
It looks like they're carrying them away, but they're not. They're
yeah.
slowly falling with
Yeah,
the
they're just grabbing them and then, using gravity and the height to get that prey, and then they'll eventually go down to it and eat there, but that they can't carry something that heavy. So, but
we did have right by me one another nest that took out a baby deer, that
yeah,
was just, a week or so old. And again, it couldn't carry that to the nest, but it did kill it and feed
yeah.
it parts and pieces back to the nest.
Yeah, and you kind of, I know when we were out in Colorado, that's one of the mammals, because of a lot of the nests weren't by, big rivers that they could fish. They were using mammals as their main source. So a little prairie dog, is only probably a couple pounds, if that. They could prey on those and bring those to the nest. But anything bigger, than like a good sized rabbit is usually too heavy to carry. So it's interesting. I'd love to hear comments from people as far as what they think was going on here. So, comment on Facebook, comments on the video, or send us an email at nestingeaglespodcast@gmail.com with your thoughts. I know it's probably from what you said, Beth, it was a very lively debate when
Oh,
when the lady posted it on a Facebook group. But
it got caustic. Yes, it
yeah,
was, you love your cat, don't let it outside.
yeah, yeah. I
It
think
is
that's the,
not,
the the moral of the story is,
yeah. Better
Eagles.
for the birds and it's better for the cat. So
Yeah, I mean,
there you
the
have it.
Eagles will prefer fish and then other items before that, but
But
it
Drew,
happens. So
we're inherently lazy.
yeah,
I could go upstairs and make a sandwich for
yeah,
lunch. There's a Culver's right down the road,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and it's the same thing with eagles.
yeah,
Oh, I have to go get wet and fish in the river and look for a fish. Wait, there's a cat. It's right there. Look, it
yeah.
doesn't even know I'm coming. It's
It's
it's the
opportunity. Yeah,
opportunity, and
yeah,
what is less of a hassle.
yeah,
So, eagles don't know they're taking somebody's pet.
yeah,
They
yeah. It's food.
You can't
Food,
blame the
right?
eagle for it
Yeah,
either, but yeah, the people were appalled online, and the person who posted it was, uh, you know, rightfully, mind was blown. My mind would be blown if I had sat there and watched it, and I know exactly where this incident took place, and you're like, wow,
yeah,
I just can't believe that's happening right here. But Wisconsin is a place where barn cats are a thing,
yeah,
and barn cats have kittens, and those kittens have kittens, and there's a lot of
yeah.
cats roaming around. And again, the memo did not go out to them that they are now on the menu for a bigger animal in the neighborhood.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So we'll move on from that. And wanted to highlight big thank you to Sherry. She
And if I can
was
say, if you found the cat story a little downer, this is going to make your day. This is a
Yeah,
happy story.
this is a really interesting one, and one that I haven't heard of. So it's very cool that it's in our Fox Valley Nest Watch program. Sherry is monitoring the nest, and she had reached out to me and said, "Oh, I think our female is missing," and it wasn't present. She was obviously concerned. A lot of times when you have a pair broken up. Our speculation, there was an eagle reported that got hit by a car fairly close to where the nest was. So we don't know for sure, but it sounds like that female eagle was struck by a car and was lost. Um,
This was not the
And
uplifting part.
yeah, this is not the uplifting part, but she was noticing that a younger eagle, as you can see from this picture, was at the nest and kind of acting like an invader, intruder at first. You can see the patchiness. So this is probably a 4-year old eagle. Let me blow it up a little bit. Um, as you can see, kind of see those patchiness on this bird. So.
Still has some
Um,
brown on the beak. The beak is not fully yellow yet.
yeah, so it was looking like it was going to be a situation where it mostly is. This is what we mostly see is when a sub-adult attacks a nest or is around a nest, it's trying to look for some prey items. It could be the eaglets, it could be the eggs, it could be the food that's brought to the nest, or all three, in some situations. So it usually doesn't go well. When we see that kind of behavior, it's usually not going well, especially when a nest only has one adult to defend it, because it's very important that the pair kind of works together to defend a nest from an intruder. And when you only have one eagle, it makes it much more difficult to do that. But over time, um, this female has been adopted as a new pair, and honestly, I've never heard of this. I'll show you a couple more pictures. That's the female again. She's a beautiful bird,
She is.
but you can definitely tell she's young. And what's going on here is, we usually see this in the off season, and when something happens to the one of the pair, they'll, repair with another eagle. But it doesn't usually happen mid-season, and if it does happen mid-season, you hear the stories of that new member of the pair usually can kill or eat or just cause the nest or not be as attentive and cause the eaglets to not make it and the nest to fail because they want to keep I guess their bloodline going, their breeding. But in this case, this hasn't happened. So this female has been adopted and has been actually a really good member of the pair, kind of as a
Stepmom.
stepmom, I guess. So see these two eaglets are looking very healthy and looking good, and
Full crop.
yeah, so that's really exciting. This is something we don't see, and I think that's why we really tout it with the bald eagle nest watch. Is these are things that are not that these are not common. So
Right.
to see something like this is extraordinary. So to document it throughout a full season. So yeah,
I
it's exciting. I'm interested to see how this makes out. And but so far so good. So it's kind of a good story, because it kind of gives us the I guess the positive vibe that if a member of the pair is lost, it's not always a death sentence to the to the eaglets. And we're seeing at Trempealeau with a single parent, kind of a weird dynamic with two nests. And also at this nest, sort of similar, where a new eagle has come in, a younger eagle, and really become that step mom that's doing a great job. So thanks to Sherry for showing the great pictures and sharing the story. She's going to be documenting it. If we
Yeah, if
have
she
anything.
sees this female feeding the chicks, that would really be a
Yeah,
lovely thing to see too, if she's able to capture anything on it.
yeah. So I'll keep in touch with her and see if we have any updates on that because I think it's a really interesting story, and we like to provide some cool stories in our program as long with the Eagle camps because there is some interesting stuff going on at Eagle nests around the country.
So the only nest that I know that was similar to this is the southwest, I can't remember, it was southeast or southwest Florida camp.
Yeah,
No, our one of our listeners, Kevin, knows the nest. But it was where it was Harriet's nest, and Harriet went missing when she swallowed a fishing line, and she
yeah.
had a hook stuck in her, and that is pretty much a death sentence unless human intervention happens. And so there was another female coming to that nest, and The male was chasing it off the nest. The female was taking food from the eaglets. But it wasn't aggressive in the sense that it was going to harm an eaglet, but she was an unwanted visitor, and the male, when he was there, kept running her off. Those eaglets were much smaller than this, and that father raised those eaglets to fledge, and now that female that kept hanging around is the female of that nest, but the eaglets fledged. So again, it was a she wasn't as hands-on as what this female is appearing to do. She wasn't accepted as quickly.
Yeah.
Um, but again, that started to change the tide of the way of thinking of an interloper in a nest. If it's looking to mate up, um, then I guess you help raise the eaglets that are in the nest that season before you can, move on to your own mating season.
Yeah, it's interesting. You usually see that in the off season, but again, it's doesn't usually happen mid-season. So, but that's very
Yeah.
interesting. I know there's a lot of animals that if that does occur, they'll kill off the previous offspring. But it doesn't seem like eagles do that. So that's a good thing for sure.
You certainly hear it with mammals, yeah,
Yeah,
more than anything.
yeah. All right. So we'll keep you updated on this one. And then we're going to do we've been doing this just recommended raptor reading. And Beth found a really good book. Mine's en route. So I'm excited to read this one too. But if you can talk a little bit about Return to the Skies, what's it about, Beth?
This book really blew my mind. So I saw this in our gift shop at the nature center where I volunteer as a raptor handler, and I thought, oh, I need to investigate that book. And so I uh, I it's not a long read. It's a couple day read, and I just was blown away. I did not know that in 1976, the whole East Coast was missing bald eagles. We had them here in Wisconsin. We have never been without bald eagles in Wisconsin, but they're up near Lake Superior and not down in the central or southern areas of Wisconsin where we're primarily focused. And so in 1976, for our bicentennial, New York City decided a it wanted to reintroduce the bald eagles. They didn't like the idea of the bicentennial happening, and our national symbol was no longer anywhere in the vicinity. So what happened is they made a deal with Wisconsin. And Wisconsin was supposed to go into two nests and take two eaglets. The third eaglet, which has less of a chance of surviving, and displace those third eaglets to New York to start an eagle population in New York. And, it's the story of this and the woman who did it. And it was an absolutely fascinating story. And not only that, but it continued to double digit states, doing the same thing. And, where I always thought the Eagles rebounded after, DDT, sort of naturally on their own, it isn't true. There was human intervention to help displace the population back across, the United States. So absolutely fascinating read. And um, this Tina Morris found herself in quite a situation where I'm sure with 2020 hindsight, she is just like, did I do that?
Yeah.
Very impressive story. So well written, vastly interesting, a lot of historical information, and very worth the read.
Yeah, I started out, if you're familiar with my story, I started out in Colorado and then I had moved to New York and had some interaction with some of the that were um, still working in government in their system, and they were part of this conservation effort. It was amazing effort. It was over many years
The
and
Peregrine
I
Fund as
what's
well.
that?
The Peregrine Fund as well.
Yeah, the Peregrine Fund. Basically these are. what's called hacking boxes. I don't know. It's these boxes that they kept, eaglets or young falcons to, and these people, like Tina, were basically their parents for a huge stretch, feeding them and doing all that they needed to survive. Um, and it's not it's a grueling process, and I'm excited to read about it because you're up in these hacking boxes that I've heard. It's just it's not
Not fun.
yeah, it's not fun, no, but it was a great effort, and New York was really at one of the key states in the country, probably due to Cornell being there as well as far as that, and the Peregrine Fund um, back then being in the state of New York. So it's a tremendous story, and we'll update you, and maybe we'll try to get some guests to talk about this process if we can in the future, because I think it'd be a really interesting topic to address.
And I think what's important and what this book points out is that next year, 2026, is our 250th birthday for our country, and the eagle has become our national bird now, as well as our national
Yeah,
symbol. And I would do yourself a favor and read this book. It is not lofty and over the head. It's explained very basically what was going on here. And I like to think I do anything, try anything. But I don't know that I would have been as brave as Tina
yeah,
to take this on. I always look back at in hindsight at things I've done, and it's like, wow, what made me think I could do that?
yeah,
And I think part of this book is Tina going, I'm not sure what made me think I could do this. But and I relate to it because I'm not sure how I got here with you, Drew.
yeah, yeah,
This was I was trying to prove a simple point, and somehow I'm on a
yeah,
podcast now. So,
yeah,
um, it's a very interesting story, very appropriate to America and its 250th birthday coming up, and it is amazing what I think the Peregrine Fund has done, and uh, people working in this industry who have kept raptors in our skies. It would be devastating to me if we were to lose our raptors.
yeah. And it's interesting. You mentioned this too. Like when I, the 6 years that I was in New York, watching Ness, a lot of those, the bloodlines that Tina and other members of of this process, this conservation team. I was watching probably their offsprings in New
Yeah,
York, so it's exciting, and the population is doing really well in New York too. Obviously
and they
not as
were
large
from
as Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
Yeah, but
The
yeah, it's kind of
it's
funny
just
that it's that,
lovely.
and
Yeah,
and they use birds from Alaska and as you mentioned, Michigan and the upper
Canada.
Midwest too as well
Yeah,
that still had nests, so that were thriving. I think if I remember correctly, New York was down to, I think it was like two or three nests, and they weren't doing well either. They were just not
they
producing
were
it.
not producing young,
Yeah,
so they were. The thought
yeah,
was that the female was too old
yeah,
to
yeah.
continue producing.
Yeah, and it just the problem with DDT too. On top of it, once you ban it, and we see it if you do watch, I know Sauce's island off of LA is they still have DDT in the environment there, and they're monitoring eagles and have nest cams out that way, and there's still problems. So DDT stays in the system for a long time in nature, and it's probably getting better as we go. But those early years, there was still some issues, and it unfortunately it wouldn't have naturally gone that well without these people taking on this hacking boxes and taking on this conservation effort and really pushing it, and getting these eaglets in, and establishing eagles again back into New York and other areas. So very
And
interesting stuff.
one of the reasons she wrote this is because nobody remembers this story.
Yeah,
Nobody knows that this happened. It's 50 years old, and of course, weren't alive.
Yep, yep.
I was, dang it, I hate to admit it, but certainly I was at an age where I wasn't going to know
Yeah,
this was going on, nor did I probably care about raptors. But it's it's a good thing to remind us of where we were and how we got back to where we are now, because
yeah,
it is such a wonderful resurgence, and you and I wouldn't be doing this podcast if it wasn't.
yeah,
It's a
absolutely.
I mean, from when I was a kid, I never saw bald eagles. And I
Yeah,
remember when I saw one for the first time in Indiana, and I was at the dunes, and they tried to convince me that I saw a turkey vulture. And I'm like, no,
no,
that was a glowing white head and
yeah,
tail.
yeah,
Quite sure it was a bald eagle. So yeah, I mean, kids today are lucky. They're growing
yeah.
up, they're seeing bald eagles in their environment and not being too elusive to humans. And it's a just a marvelous thing.
Yeah, it's definitely. I think when people talk about conservation efforts, this is one of them. Is the bald eagle conservation and bringing it back. There was a lot of factors that came into play, but these people's efforts with all this,
This was valiant.
yeah, very valued, very important. So. All right, so we'll end with that, and just wanted to mention, subscribe if you like what you're hearing. Thank you to all our watchers, our viewers. Um, we're going to continue to do this and try to bring you different and more interesting topics as we go along as well. So if you're interested in Eagles, subscribe, like us on Facebook, send us emails, and again, send us pictures. We'd love to highlight people's pictures. Um,
Not
and
necessarily with cats, but
yeah, no, not with cat. Hopefully not with cats, but that's it. And I think we'd shut it down if unless Beth has something else.
no, just we'll probably talk about the book a little more next week after you've read it then
Yeah.
too. So
Yeah, and we'll try to highlight books that are either raptor or eagle based to give you kind of some stuff if you're looking for books in that genre, I guess, of nature and raptors. So with that, thank you so much, and we'll sign off from there.